You were taught that giving more of your time makes you a better man, more available, more helpful, more dependable. But the world does not respect what it can access instantly. It uses it. Today, you will build the access vault. You will engineer scarcity around your presence, or you will remain a cheap convenience for people who never intended to value you. Look at how most men live. Their phone lights up, and they answer like trained staff. Someone needs a favor, and they sacrifice rest, focus, and self-respect just to prove they are good. They think reliability earns status. It usually earns consumption, because human beings are brutally predictable. We chase what feels rare, we protect what feels costly, and we take for granted whatever stays available without friction. That is why the always available man gets praised in public and ignored in private. He becomes useful, but never respected, needed, but never valued. The powerful man understands something different. Access is not given, it is regulated. His time is a vault. His attention is tiered. His yes has weight. His absence creates pressure. And once you learn how to build that structure into your life, people stop treating you like a free resource and start treating you like a man with gravity. You were lied to. You were told that a good man is easy to reach, easy to ask, easy to lean on, easy to interrupt, easy to consume. So you built a life with no walls. Your phone vibrates and you answer. Somebody needs help and you rearrange your day. Someone feels lonely, confused, overwhelmed, bored, and somehow that becomes your responsibility. And then you wonder why people rely on you but do not respect you, why they remember your usefulness but not your value, why your presence feels normal to them instead of rare. Because the world has a brutal habit. It does not treasure what is always available, it absorbs it. The man who can always be reached becomes background noise. The man who always says yes becomes infrastructure. The man who never protects his time teaches everyone around him that his life has no higher command. That is the first law. People do not measure your value by what you give. They measure it by what it costs to access you. And that is where the access vault begins. Not with arrogance, not with games, not with childish coldness, with structure. Because if you do not build structure around your time, other people will build their convenience on top of it. Look at the way human beings behave around anything rare. Rare metals, rare art, rare seats, rare opportunities. The moment access becomes limited, attention rises, respect rises, care rises. But abundance kills reverence. If diamonds rained from the sky, we would sweep them into the gutter. That is not poetry. That is psychology. What is common becomes invisible. What is effortless becomes cheap. What is always there gets handled with careless hands. And you have done this to yourself. You thought constant access made you admirable. In reality, it made you predictable. And predictability is the death of presence. The man with no gatekeepers gets treated like public property. People show up without warning, message without thought, request without hesitation, assume without gratitude. Why? Because you trained them to. Every instant reply taught them your focus is negotiable. Every rushed favor taught them your schedule is soft. Every unnecessary explanation taught them they are entitled to your reasoning. A man does not lose status in one dramatic collapse. He loses it in 1,000 tiny permissions. One quick answer when he should have stayed focused. One cancelled plan with himself to satisfy someone else. One more favor done too fast. One more emotional interruption allowed through the gate. That is how a man becomes cheap. Not by lacking talent, not by lacking heart, but by lacking friction. The world respects guarded things. A vault is valuable because it does not open for everyone. A crown matters because not every head can wear it. A blade matters because it is controlled, not waved around by every passing hand. Your time should feel the same, protected, measured, intentional. And the moment you understand that, you stop asking the wrong question. The wrong question is, how can I make people appreciate me? The better question is, why is my life arranged in a way that gives strangers, users, and emotional dependents casual access to me? That question changes everything, because now this is not about being liked. It is about sovereignty. The weak man tries to earn respect by increasing availability. The strategic man increases respect by increasing standards. That sounds cold to men who were trained to confuse access with virtue, but think carefully. Would you trust a man with no control over his own attention? Would you admire a man whose priorities collapse every time someone calls? Would you call him powerful if anybody could redirect his day with a little urgency or guilt? No, you would call him available. And available is not the same as valuable. That is the trap. Most men are not disrespected because they are bad. They are disrespected because they are too easy to consume. And once you see that, the next lie becomes impossible to ignore. The lie of the nice guy. The nice guy thinks his speed proves character. He answers first, shows up first, volunteers first, adjusts first, forgives first, explains first. He lives in permanent reaction. And because he lives in reaction, people assume he has nothing heavier to protect. That is what instant availability secretly communicates. It says, my own mission is light. It says, my own standards can move. It says, you can enter without knocking. Nobody says this out loud. They just feel it. Human beings are always reading status beneath behavior. When you are always available for them, what are you neglecting in yourself? Your body, your work, your discipline, your silence, your recovery, your long game. A man with real purpose cannot be endlessly reachable. He has training, he has deep work, he has plans that do not get renegotiated because somebody else suddenly wants attention. So when you make instant access your personality, you do not look generous. You look unclaimed, and unclaimed men get claimed by everyone, by needy friends, by chaotic family, by manipulative co-workers, by people who only remember your number when they need labor, reassurance, time, or emotional oxygen. This is why the nice guy becomes resentful. He tells himself he is kind, but deep down he knows something darker is happening. He keeps giving in the hope that one day people will finally see his value. They usually do not, because value is not proven by self-erasure. It is proven by self-command. The weak man thinks, if I do enough, they will respect me. The strategic man thinks, my standards teach people how to approach me. That is the difference. One begs for appreciation through service. The other establishes terms through discipline. And here is the brutal truth. People-pleasing is rarely kindness. Most of the time, it is fear wearing a polite face. Fear of disappointing, fear of seeming selfish, fear of losing approval, fear of being called difficult, fear of no longer being needed. So the nice guy keeps the door open, not because it is noble, because he is terrified of what happens when he closes it. But that still is not the most dangerous part. The most dangerous part is that every open door invites more intrusion, which means if you want respect to rise, you need your first mechanism of controlled access. You need a rule. You need delay. You need friction. You need people to feel that reaching you is no longer the same as owning you. And that is exactly why the next move matters more than the first. So let us build the first lock, not a speech, not an announcement, not a dramatic social media post about boundaries, a system. Because weak men try to change how people see them with words. Strategic men change how people experience them with patterns. The first pattern is simple. The 24-hour delay rule. You do not respond instantly unless the matter is truly urgent, directly aligned with your priorities, or belongs to someone who has already earned close access. That one rule begins to change the entire temperature of your life. Because most men are not available out of necessity. They are available out of reflex. They hear the sound. They see the screen light up. They feel the pressure. And they react before they think. That is not communication. That is conditioning. Your nervous system has been trained to believe every incoming request deserves immediate acknowledgement. Every message feels like a small courtroom. You feel accused if you do not answer. You feel guilty if you do not explain. You feel rude if you do not rush. So you obey. And every time you obey that impulse, you hand away a little more authority over your inner world. Read the text. Put the phone down. Answer it tomorrow. Watch their respect grow. Not because they enjoy the delay, because the delay sends a message. This man is not a kiosk. This man does not operate on public demand. This man responds from choice, not pressure. That is what people feel. The weak reaction is instant contact, fast replies, fast reassurance, fast availability. Why does it fail? Because speed, when it becomes automatic, stops looking generous and starts looking ownerless. If every person can pull your attention on command, then your attention has no rank, no filtration, no hierarchy, no weight, and what has no weight gets handled carelessly. The strategic response is controlled pacing, not ghosting, not childish silence, not fake indifference, pacing. You decide when a response happens. You decide which channel gets used. You decide whether the request even deserves a reply today. That is power. Because time is not only a resource, it is a signal. When you answer everything instantly, you signal surplus. When you pace your responses, you signal order. And order creates status. Now understand something important. The 24-hour delay rule is not mainly for other people, it is for you. It breaks the addiction to being needed. That is the hidden sickness in many men. Not kindness, neediness through usefulness. They do not know who they are without being called upon. So every notification becomes proof of relevance. Every request becomes a chance to feel important. Every interruption becomes a small emotional drug. That is why they panic when they stop responding instantly. Silence confronts them with themselves. No incoming praise, no dependency, no little emergency to rescue. Just their own life, their own thoughts, their own unfinished discipline. And that is where most men fail, because they would rather be interrupted than be alone with the truth that they have neglected their own mission. But once you can sit inside that silence without scrambling to be useful, your center changes. Now you are no longer reacting from hunger. You are responding from design, and design is always more powerful than emotion. Use the rule like this. A non-urgent text comes in. You see it, you do nothing. Not because you are playing a game, because you are training a new standard. A casual favor request comes in during your recovery time. You wait, you consider, you respond later, if at all. A co-worker sends a last-minute demand that was created by their lack of planning. You do not absorb the chaos immediately. You let it sit outside the vault until you decide whether it deserves entry. That pause does something profound. It separates their urgency from your priority, and that separation is the beginning of freedom. Most manipulation works through speed. Respond now. Decide now. Help now. Explain now. Prove now. Why? Because pressure collapses discernment. If they can rush you, they can bypass your standards. So your delay is not laziness. It is an inspection chamber. Every request waits there. Every invitation waits there. Every demand waits there. And while it waits, you ask better questions. Does this deserve access? Does this serve my mission? Would I say yes if there were no guilt attached? Am I being invited with respect or summoned out of convenience? These questions save men from quiet self-betrayal. And once your response pattern changes, something strange happens. Some people become more respectful, others become irritated. Pay attention to both. Respectful people adapt. Users complain. People who value you will accept structure. People who are feeding on your instant access will call it distance. They will say you are harder to reach, less available, different, good. That means the vault door is finally visible. And that leads to the next discipline. Because delayed access is strong, but it is not enough by itself. If everybody still holds the same key, you have not built a vault. You have only made the lines slower. Now we get to something even more uncomfortable. Categorizing your circle. Most men hate this idea because they are still attached to a childish fantasy. The fantasy of equality. They want to believe everyone in their life deserves the same warmth, the same speed, the same access, the same emotional reach. But equality is a lie in relationships. Treat people according to their investment in you. That is not cruelty, that is accuracy. The weak reaction is to treat casual people like inner circle people, to give acquaintances the same availability as loyal allies, to give takers the same warmth as builders, to let history, familiarity, or politeness blur every line. Why does that fail? Because unrestricted access rewards low investment. It tells people they can contribute little and still receive much. Minimal loyalty, full access. Minimal reciprocity, full entry. Minimal respect, full audience. That is how parasites thrive. The strategic response is tiered access. Not everybody reaches you the same way. Not everybody gets the same speed. Not everybody gets the same version of you. There are levels. Acquaintances get courtesy, not intimacy. Co-workers get professionalism, not emotional availability. Friends get selective access based on consistency, loyalty, and mutual investment. And then there are the few, the elite allies, the men and women who do not just consume your energy, they sharpen it, protect it, respect it, multiply it. Those are the people who get deeper access. Everyone else stays outside the inner gate. This is where men reclaim massive amounts of life. Because once you stop running your relationships on guilt and start running them on earned proximity, your emotional leakage drops immediately. You stop oversharing with people who have not earned context. You stop rescuing people who never reciprocate. You stop answering low-level demands with high-level energy. And now your presence begins to feel different, more measured, more deliberate, more difficult to waste. Think of it like a fortress. The outer gate is polite, the inner gate is selective, the throne room is sacred. A weak man lets strangers wander the halls. A strategic man knows exactly who belongs in which chamber, and he never apologizes for architecture. Use a simple filter. Who reaches for me only in need? Who reaches for me with respect? Who adds weight to my life and who adds noise? Who honors my no? Who becomes colder the moment I stop over-giving? Those answers will reorganize your world. And yes, some people will lose access. They should, because access without standards is how a man gets drained dry while calling it loyalty. But that still is not the final layer. Because once you delay access and tier the keys, one last test remains. What happens when you do decide to say yes? That is where most men ruin all their progress. Now we come to the part most men never understand. It is not enough to say no better. You must also say yes differently. Because a careless yes can destroy everything a disciplined no just built. This is where the weak man collapses. He starts setting boundaries. He replies slower. He closes a few doors. And then, the moment he finally agrees to help, he does it too fast, too easily, too completely. He removes all the weight from his generosity, and when generosity has no weight, it stops being appreciated. It becomes expected. That is why your yes needs friction. Not fake difficulty, not theater, not manipulation for attention. Friction, a structure that reminds people your effort is not automatic, not casual, and not detached from cost. Never do a favor quickly. Make them feel the weight of your effort. That one shift changes the emotional texture of the entire exchange. The weak reaction is instant service. Sure, I got you. No problem. I'll handle it. Send it over. It sounds kind. It feels efficient. But psychologically, it lowers the perceived value of what you are giving. Why? Because speed erases sacrifice. When something arrives too easily, the human mind assumes it cost little. Little thought, little rearrangement, little strain. And when people assume your effort costs little, they treat your effort like a refillable resource. That is how men become human vending machines. The strategic response is the high-friction yes. You do not grant help like a servant clearing a tray. You grant it like a man moving pieces on a board. Measured, limited, conscious. That can look like this. Not today. I can look at it later this week. Or, I can help with this part, not the whole thing. Or, I have space for 20 minutes. Use it well. Or even, I will do it once. After that, you need your own system. Hear the difference. Same yes. Different frame. In the weak frame, your help feels endless. In the strong frame, your help feels granted. And granted things are valued more than assumed things. This is not about being dramatic. It is about preserving the meaning of your effort. If you help too quickly, people experience convenience. If you help with weight, people experience privilege. The weak man wants to be seen as generous. The strategic man understands that true generosity requires borders. Otherwise, it is not generosity. It is leakage. Now look deeper. Why do so many men rush to help? Because helping fast gives them a temporary identity. Needed, useful, important, good. But that identity is fragile. It depends on being summoned. So the man keeps overgiving because each request lets him feel relevant for a moment. He is not serving from strength. He is feeding on dependency. That is why some men are exhausted all the time. Not because life is only demanding, because they made access to themselves the center of their self-worth. A sovereign man helps from surplus, not from hunger. He does not need every yes to prove he matters. So when he gives with form. He chooses the scale. He chooses the timing. He chooses the limit. And because of that, his effort lands with force. Imagine two men. One drops everything the moment he is asked. The other pauses, checks his calendar, adjusts nothing important and says, I can make room for this on Thursday. Which man feels busier? Which man feels heavier? Which man feels like his life already has structure? The second, always, because structure is attractive. It implies purpose. It implies command. It implies that your world does not bend instantly for random pressure. Now here is the next layer. Once your yes gains weight, the people who benefited from your old softness will not stay silent. They will push back, not always with rage, often with something more effective. Guilt. This is the moment weak men relapse, because emotional vampires rarely attack your boundaries directly. They attack your identity. They say, you've changed. You used to care. You're hard to reach now. You think you're too good for people. You're not the same. Listen carefully. None of those statements are about truth. They are about access. They are mourning the version of you they could enter without resistance. And because they cannot say that openly, they disguise it as concern, disappointment, nostalgia, or moral judgment. The weak reaction is to defend yourself, to explain, to soften, to over-clarify, to prove you are still kind. And the moment you do that, you step back into their frame. You are no longer holding a boundary. You are standing trial for having one. That is where many men lose all their progress. They build the vault door, then open it again because someone outside looks offended. The strategic response is simple, calm, brief, unmoved. When they say, "You've changed," you say, "I upgraded." And then you let the silence do its work. No essay, no argument, no emotional performance. Because over-explaining lowers status, it communicates doubt. It signals that your standards still require permission. They do not. A man with a spine does not panic because someone is uncomfortable with his limits. He expects discomfort. Why? Because every boundary exposes a hidden contract. The unspoken contract was this: you stay easy, I stay comfortable. The moment you break that contract, their reaction reveals what they were really attached to. Not you, your accessibility. That is why pushback is not failure. Pushback is evidence. Evidence that the old arrangement served them more than it served you. Once you understand that, the guilt starts to disappear. You stop hearing "you've changed" as an accusation. You hear it as confirmation. Yes, you changed. You stopped treating your life like public property. You stopped making immediate access a sign of love. You stopped rewarding low effort with high availability. Of course they noticed. They were supposed to. Some will adapt. Some will drift. Some will resent you quietly. Let them. A man trying to evolve cannot keep negotiating with people committed to the weaker version of him. That is the brutal tax of growth. Not everyone gets to come with you. At the highest level, scarcity is not a trick. It is not delayed texting. It is not selective scheduling. It is not some polished performance of looking busy. It is the natural byproduct of a full life. That is the destination. Because tactics can change your behavior. Only identity can change your gravity. A weak man uses boundaries as an occasional defense. A sovereign man lives in such alignment that weak access rarely reaches him in the first place. Why? Because his days already belong to something. His mornings are claimed. His standards are claimed. His body is claimed. His focus is claimed. His future is claimed. He is not hard to reach because he wants to look important. He is hard to reach because he is occupied by a life that matters. That is the final evolution. Not acting unavailable, actually becoming invested in your work, in your training, in your code, in your discipline, in your silence, in the architecture of the man you are building when nobody is watching. That kind of man does not need to manufacture mystery. Purpose creates mystery on its own. People cannot easily access him because he is not floating in emotional open space waiting to be claimed. He is moving. That is what most men miss. Scarcity without substance is just theater. Substance creates real scarcity. You can delay replies all day. You can filter calls. You can act detached. But if your life is still empty, people will feel that too. Because the real source of power is not distance. It is density. A dense life. A life with weight. A life with commitments strong enough to repel nonsense. That is when your no stops sounding forced. That is when your silence stops sounding tactical. That is when your absence stops looking like a stunt. Because it is no longer strategy alone, it is truth. The sovereign man thinks differently. He does not ask, "Will they be upset if I say no?" He asks, "Does this deserve entry into my world?" He does not ask, how do I make them understand? He asks, why do I need to be understood by people who do not honor limits? He does not ask, how can I keep everyone happy? He asks, what structure protects my peace, my mission, and my future? That is a different species of thinking. Now you are no longer negotiating from fear. Now you are ruling from standard. And here is what that looks like in real life. He speaks slower because he is not trying to earn the room. He explains less because he is not asking permission for his boundaries. He waits longer because urgency from others does not become urgency in him. He refuses cleanly because confusion invites pressure. He observes first because information arrives fastest in silence. He moves with intention because scattered men get owned by scattered demands. This is what people call presence. But presence is not charisma. It is internal order made visible. And once a man has that order, something changes in the social world around him. The entitled become uncomfortable. The manipulative become exposed. The superficial lose interest. The serious begin to respect him. Because standards are filters. They do not only protect your peace, they reveal who was approaching you for the wrong reasons. That is why closing the vault door is not the loss men fear. It is the sorting they need. You lose parasites. You lose casual users. You lose people who only loved your lack of boundaries. Good. That is not loneliness. That is purification. Because an open gate does not create brotherhood. It creates traffic. And traffic is not loyalty. So here is the oath. Stop being a public building with the lights always on. Stop rewarding interruption. Stop proving goodness through self-abandonment. Stop handing premium access to people with discount intentions. Build the vault. Delay what does not deserve urgency. Tier, who gets access. Make your yes carry weight. Let pushback expose who is feeding on your softness. Then fill your life so completely that your scarcity becomes real. This is how a man becomes expensive. Not loud, not cruel, not unreachable for vanity. Expensive because his attention is disciplined. His presence is earned, his energy is not public, and his life is no longer available for casual consumption. So write this in the comments. My time is earned, not assumed. And if you are done being easy to access, subscribe. Join the inner circle to master the psychology of social leverage. And if you want a practical system, download the Access Control Matrix to decide exactly who gets your time, your attention, and your inner gate. Because once a man locks the vault, the world finally learns the cost of reaching him.